which would be fitting. 3 seconds to go. The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup.
This remarkable Oiler comeback falls one game short.
The Florida Panthers, for the third consecutive season, are heading to the Stanley Cup Final.
And the Oilers are headed for a rematch with the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final.
The 2025 Stanley Cup Final begins tonight, and we've got a rematch between the Oilers and the Panthers. First time since 2009 we've had a rematch of the Stanley Cup Final when the Penguins beat the Red Wings in 2009. The Red Wings beat the Penguins the previous year in 2008. And Pittsburgh's Sidney Crosby won the Stanley Cup in 2009 after losing it in 2008 against the same team. Connor McDavid, who is the face of, maybe not the face of the NHL, but the best player in the NHL right now, will try and do what Crosby did. Scored a game-winning goal in overtime to win the gold for Canada against the United States, just like Crosby. Lost his first Stanley Cup Final. Now looking to win the year after he lost the same team that defeated him a year ago. But it wasn't an easy ride for the Oilers. It was not smooth sailing to get here. Early on, it looked like the Oilers were going to get bounced in the first round by the Los Angeles Kings. They lost the first 2 games in Los Angeles, kind of got destroyed, to be honest. And then they were down like late in Game 3. And then they scored a goal that the Kings challenged, got a power play. LA stupidly challenged that. And then the Oilers scored 10 seconds in. They won that game. And then Game 4, they were down 2 goals. They lost that going in the third period. They scored with 30 seconds left, tie, ultimately won overtime. And ever since, really then, they've pretty much steamrolled. They've only lost 2 games since that rough start against Los Angeles. And it pretty much steamrolled the rest of the way back to the final. And Connor McDavid, he's looking for some redemption after last year. McDavid, he won the Conn Smythe, the first losing player to win the playoffs MVP since John Sebastian Giguère did in 2003. However, McDavid didn't show up in Game 6 or 7. He didn't really do much in Game 7. He had an unbelievable playoff run, don't want to take that away, but in that Game 7, the Oilers couldn't get it done last year. And the narrative, he wants redemption. Can the Oilers finally do it? Can McDavid finally get his first Stanley Cup? I think we all know McDavid and Draisaitl are going to show up. But losing a guy like Zach Hyman, who got injured in the Western Conference Finals, could be tough for Edmonton to overcome. But they do have a lot of guys stepping up. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was unbelievable in that series against Dallas in the Western Conference Finals, playing as the best hockey he's played all season. Evander Kane, whose career looked like it could have been over last year after he was kind of a no-show in last year's playoff run. He's really stepped up and is getting back to playing how he did before the injuries. And then Corey Perry, the 40-year-old ageless wonder who has bounced from team to team to team, been a gritty fourth liner the last few years, former MVP of the league back 15 years ago, has really adapted his game to playing a bottom six role very well. And he's been a huge contributor. He's really stepped up in these playoffs, scoring key goals. He usually was in the bottom six, but I believe he's playing with playing with the McDavid and Draisaitl this postseason run. The biggest X factor, in my opinion, for the Oilers is Stuart Skinner, the stash. Stuart Skinner. I mean, if I think the word inconsistent would be an understatement for Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner in the regular season was like the worst goalie in hockey. He allowed 6 goals in the first 2 games against the Los Angeles Kings in the first round. He was a complete disaster. Looked like, wow, Edmonton, what a disappointing season. After going to the final, first round exit, they're going to have to change goalies. Stuart Skinner gets benched. Calvin Pickard comes in, and he kind of saves the Oilers' season. He wins 6 games in a row, but then Pickard gets injured again, and they have to go back to Stuart Skinner. And Oilers fans are like, oh no, oh, he might ruin it for us. And Game 3 was pretty rough against Vegas. He had a couple bad goals in that game. But ever since then, Stuart Skinner's been pretty much stopping everything, and he's pretty much been dominant. And making big saves for the Oilers, and outplayed Jake Ottinger in the Western Conference Finals. What Stuart Skinner are we going to get? That is a huge question. If we get the Stuart Skinner early in the playoffs and throughout most of the regular season, Edmonton's going to have a tough time. But if Stuart Skinner plays well, the Oilers have a real shot at redemption here. But it's obviously not going to be easy, as they're facing the team that beat them last year, and the Florida Panthers in their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final, matching what their in-state rival, the Tampa Bay Lightning, did, making 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. They're looking to match Tampa Bay now by winning back-to-back Stanley Cups. I mean, this top 9 of the forward group is absolutely insane. I mean, you got Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett's been unbelievable. And then the third line, your third line is Brad Marchand, Anton Lundell, and Eetu Luostarinen. I mean, Brad Marchand, former 100-point player, he's really fit in as a veteran presence for the Panthers. And just him, Lundell, Luostarinen, they've been unbelievable on that third line. That third line's been their best line all playoffs. And then the defense, you know, that might be the weakness going into the playoffs, was defensive depth, but Seth Jones has been a really nice addition for the Panthers on defense. Ever since they lost Brandon Montour last offseason, they had trouble replacing that number 1 offensive defenseman guy, can run the power play and all that. And Seth Jones, the trade at first, people were like, seemed like a lot for give up to a guy who'd really struggled in Chicago. But Seth Jones really stepped up, especially in that Game 7 against Toronto. And he's fit in perfectly with the defensive core. And then, obviously, they got Bobrovsky in net. And this team's built for these moments. They're built for these big moments. They never, get rattled. Like last year, in the final, they were up 3-0. They lost 3 in a row. And they were on the verge of a choke perhaps worse than the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl, blowing a 3-0 lead in the final. Only 4 teams in the history of the NHL had ever blown a 3-0 series lead. When you get to Game 7, it's easy for the Panthers to be rattled. But going into that Game 7, the Panthers put their foot down, they put their head down, and they got it done. Just a lot of, team easily could have been rattled, but they won. And they're just built for the playoffs. Their forechecking will just kill you. It just feels like there's so much stretches of the game where they just feel like you can't stop them, or you can't get a shot on them, you can't get a good chance on them, because They're just their puck battles are so insane. Like, and Edmonton's going to have a hard time with that. Now for my prediction. It's tough because I could see this going either way. I could definitely see Edmonton winning. I think they've been so impressive ever since rebounding from that first two losses to the Kings and turning the season from disaster to potential glory. Really haven't seen a lot of, like, it's pretty rare you kind of see that, like, just unbelievable turnaround by the Oilers. And then, but, man, this Florida team's just too good, I think. I think not having Zach Hyman is going to be the difference. Does Edmonton have the depth that Florida has? Now, their guys been stepping up, but the Panthers are a different animal. They know how to shut down the big stars. They did it against Toronto, and I know the Leafs always choke in the playoffs, but they basically, the core four in Toronto did nothing, and now it might be a Toronto thing. That's a whole other conversation about the Leafs. But they also were able to shut down Nikita Kucherov, the league's leading point scorer this year in the last 2 years, top three. Shut him down, basically had no goals. So the Panthers are good at shutting down teams' top players. Edmonton will have home ice this time. I think that will help. But you wonder, does not having Zach Hyman negatively impact Edmonton? I think it does. And because of that, I'm going to take the Panthers to win the Stanley Cup final, and I think it's going to be a 7-game series again. And Edmonton, they're a veteran group, and I could see this thing going either way because I think both teams are so good. Both these teams this year might be better than the teams last year. And the funny thing is, Edmonton seemed like they kind of screwed their team, like last offseason. They did not have a good offseason. They got old guys who didn't work out, Arvidsson and Skinner, who were supposed to be really good. They're not good signings. And they let Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg walk. Ended up being a bad decision. But despite that, the team's somehow gotten better. They've been able to overcome a lot to get to this point. I just think the Panthers have the deeper team. And I think they know what it takes to win. It's such a tough pick because I think both these teams are really good. But I'm going to take Florida in 7, based on the experience in these moments. I just think Florida's a little bit better and a little bit deeper. And there's, I'd say, more questions with Edmonton than Florida with the absence of Hyman, and who knows, Darnell Nurse could make a back-breaking mistake. Evan Bouchard's been good, but he struggled in last year's final. Really good in the first 3 rounds. Does he have bad turnovers? I just think Florida's a bit more of a trustworthy team, but the Oilers do have McDavid and Draisaitl, so go either way, but I'm just going to take the Panthers in 7. But it's going to be a great final, and I can't wait to watch it. Thanks for watching this video. I'm Spence, signing off.